Welcome into Jungle Tales, a Pirate Baseball podcast, episode 14 of the show. We are a week and a half from opening day as the Pirates will, of course, get underway on Valentine's Day, February 14th, against the George Mason Patriots. We will talk a little about the here and now during this edition of the show, but primarily going to be taking a trip down memory lane back to the late 90s and early 2000s where the Pirates had so much success. Welcome into the show for the first time, former East Carolina shortstop Lee Delfino. Lee, we appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me, Bubba. Pleasure.
Absolutely. You of course played for the Pirates from '99 to '01, and we'll dive into your path to East Carolina, how a guy from Canada wound up in Greenville, North Carolina, here in just a moment. But tell folks who aren't familiar with your background and just a little about your childhood, what sports you played growing up, and that sort of thing.
Well, I didn't play hockey. I know that's a question that some of your followers might be asking, but no, I've always loved baseball. I grew up playing actually back when I was 8, 9, 10 years old, fast pitch, like with softball. Softball was like very, very popular up here. So I didn't actually start playing baseball until I was 11 or 12 years old, once I kind of started following the Blue Jays. And I remember asking my father, I think I was 11 years old. I said, Dad, how come we use this ball and the Blue Jays are using, why are they throwing overhand and we're throwing windmill? So it was that year when my father said, okay, well, like you can go and try that baseball if you like. So no, I've always played baseball. I love baseball. I'm still passionate about the game. Played a whole bunch of other different sports at school, like basketball and football and, that sort of stuff. But baseball's always been my passion.
So you talk about that passion you had for the game, and then you really didn't pick it up till 11 or 12 years old, which relatively speaking is kind of late. But when did you really know that you were pretty good at it and had the opportunity to turn it into a college and professional career?
Well, I lucked out actually. My first class in high school. So up here in Canada, you have your, I don't know what it's like in the U.S., but you've got certain elective courses, and one of the elective courses that I picked was auto. I wanted to learn how to fix cars, and I guess I mistakenly picked the wrong course. And my first ever class in high school was electrical technology. And I remember telling my mother, I was like, I don't really want to do electrical technology. I'm not going to class, first class. I'll show up late and just get it switched over. And she said, no, go to that class and, give it a week. And if you don't like it, then switch then. And the teacher walked in. Actually, the teacher was late that day himself. And he kind of gave us a brief introduction as to, who he was and what he was about. And at the end of his little introduction to the class, he said, and by the way, I'm a scout for the New York Yankees. And I remember I had my head on the desk and I propped up and I was like, come on, no way. So as I built a relationship with him, it was him that actually instilled a lot of confidence in myself and gave me a lot of the opportunity that I had with baseball and put me in a lot of different situations that I don't think I would have ever had if it wasn't for him.
So when did East Carolina come into the picture? And in addition to the Pirates, who else recruited you? And how did you wind up, a member of Coach LeClair's first recruiting class there? And we'll dive into the specifics of that class because what a class it was.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that same teacher, pardon me. So my freshman year of high school, we started doing road trips. So our baseball team, we'd play in the U.S. a lot. So I remember going to Connecticut, and then we did one stop down in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. And it was there that actually Western Carolina, where Keith was at prior to coming to East Carolina, he had sent one of his guys over to that event, and I met a gentleman by the name of Randy Mazie. So I'm I think at the time 14 years old, and I'm just playing the game that I love, and I had no thought or concept at that point of going to the U.S. or even playing professional baseball at that point. And I built a relationship with Coach Mazie, and in turn, Coach LeClair. And, I was very fortunate. And, back then there wasn't many Canadians that made it down south. And having opportunities to play for the national team on many occasions. And obviously with, my high school coach exposing me to every chance we got, we went to play at an event in the U.S. And, I was recruited by a lot of pretty big schools, actually. Like, I didn't realize it back then, like Oklahoma State and Kentucky and Kansas and a lot of Big 12 schools. But I really fell in love with, the mission and the concept and the goals that, Coach Mazey and Coach LeClair, they, from day one, it was always talk about going to Omaha and building a team and being a part of building something that, really, I know East Carolina is steeped in tradition, but, nothing that a Canadian would have known about. Right. So it was just building that relationship and that trust with those two coaches. And I remember coming down. I only took one of my visits, and my one visit, I remember my father and I hopped in the car and we drove down. It was like 14-hour drive to Greenville. And, I spent the weekend there and I fell in love with everything about, the culture and the city and the support for the athletics. It felt like home right off the bat. So it was an easy decision for me to go to East Carolina.
And I say Coach LeClair's first class, of course, he was hired in the summer of '97, and that '98 season was his first year. But, first full class, as far as having the chance to really, having recruited the guys all along and, that sort of thing, and not just one that was being put together at the last minute. But taking a look at that class off the air, we were talking Chad Tracy, obviously played about a decade or so in the big leagues. And he had just an unbelievable freshman season. You had JUCOs like Eric Bakich and Nick Schnabel, who, of course, now down in Clemson, South Carolina, got in that program and doing a heck of a job. And then you had a guy that was, still, it was a holdover from the previous era, the Gary Overton years, and that was Steve Solargo. And what a 1999 season Steve Solargo had.
Yeah, that was incredible. I mean, there was, like I said, there's a lot of talk about, Omaha, and we set some pretty lofty goals. And, I remember, you got your early morning workouts and, your hours on the field. And then it just, it slowly just started coming together. And then, we kind of started looking around the room and the amount of talent we had and how well we got along together and really picked each other. Like it was, you talk about guys like Chad Tracy and Steve Solargo. I mean, you could go through that whole roster, even a lot of guys that didn't get a lot of chance to play. We all pushed each other. And I think that's why we were able to accomplish, such great things. I know we fell short of our goal, but, to go from relatively unknown to, a top 15 program in the country literally overnight, it just speaks to the volume of the type of, not only people that Coach LeClair and his staff recruited, but just the environment that they created.
We had a question submitted a little earlier via text from Johnny Gardner, a loyal East Carolina fan for years, an alum from the early '90s. But Johnny was wanting you to kind of detail that experience, having the opportunity to play for that Canadian national team.
That was incredible, man. I mean, so I was fortunate enough to start pretty young. So I played on the national team at 16. So it was the junior national team. We played, I believe, in the World Championships in St. Louis, Missouri. So that was my first taste to, see international competition, play against the Cubans, play against the true Team USA. On that Team USA, they had guys like Felipe Lopez and Manny Crespo and a guy named Drew Henson who did some pretty incredible things on the football field. And Matt Holliday actually was on that team. So that was my first taste of international competition. The next opportunity I got was in the 1999 Pan Am Games, where I believe I was the only high school player in the whole tournament. So it was the rosters, like Team USA's roster was essentially all AAA 40-man guys. And, you go from seeing, 85 to 88 miles an hour in high school to 95, 98 in a matter of a blink of an eye. And, having that event it was in the province of Manitoba in Winnipeg. We were really, it was really cool because our equivalent of ESPN is called TSN up here, and our games are broadcast across the country. And we had 15 to 20,000 people at every game. It was pretty incredible. And from then I had opportunities to go overseas and play in other events in Panama, World Cups, World Championships, and Holland. And representing your country is definitely something special and something I'll never forget.
Here a moment ago, you mentioned Keith LeClair's vision that he had for that East Carolina program. Back, upon being hired there in the summer of '97, he, of course, left his alma mater. You referenced earlier his time as head coach, which began at the age of 25 at Western Carolina. Took the Catamounts to the brink of Omaha, and left home, so to speak, to take the East Carolina job, which says a lot about in his belief in what the program could become and that vision. But give us a glimpse behind the scenes and the Cliff Notes version of what he and that staff, Randy Mazey, et cetera, sold you on as far as what East Carolina baseball was and could become.
Well, it was more about just kind of trying to prove everyone wrong. It's kind of like, we may be small, but we can do big things. And, that just kind of resonated with me. I think, like, looking back at when I was getting recruited, Oklahoma State has been a powerhouse for a long time, and I was really close to committing to Oklahoma State. But I personally, I wanted to be a part of building something. Even though back in the day, we didn't really have the best facilities, it was like, well, let's prove to everyone that we can perform on the big stage and play with the big schools, and we'll get these things and we'll earn these things. And there's something about earning respect rather than just showing up and being respected because of the past. And I remember actually the first 2 weeks of our fall season, we didn't even touch a baseball. It was literally, who's willing to run through a wall for, the guy next to you. And it was from that moment on that, we knew we had something special because we had no quit in our group, man. It was honestly, it was definitely like, I talk about playing for the national team and what an experience that was, but there's nothing like, going through the fall and the grind and so we used to carry each other up the football stadium. We'd have a guy piggyback each other up the football stadium and crawl under barbed wire through mud at, in the freezing cold at the wee hours in the morning. And it didn't matter. Like, if there was a challenge in front of us, we wanted to do it to the best of our ability. And I think he did a really good job of pushing us that way. And the crazy thing is that, like, it became a message from them, but then we took that and ran with it, where we literally pushed each other to be better every day. And I think that's what made the whole experience that special, that much special.
Your former teammate Cliff Godwin's, of course, entering his 11th year, guiding the program now, and we'll talk more about that relationship with Cliff later on. But just with what he's done, and Mission Week is such a big part of the culture of East Carolina baseball. And Cliff has said on numerous occasions that he said, "I know people won't believe me." He said, "But I promise you that it's tough as what we do is still not as hard as what we did under Coach LeClair, because if I did what Coach LeClair did now, we would be fired as far as crawling under barbed wire and so forth." So there you go, Pirate Nation.
Puss becomes soft, I guess, is what you're telling me.
Yeah.
No, man. Listen, it's I understand that the landscape and things have changed, but I tell everyone that asks me up here, because I was drafted in the 5th round by the Blue Jays, and I was really close to signing out of high school. And I get asked all the time, do I regret, not signing out of high school? And I say, absolutely not, because East Carolina and what we endured through, like I said, those early morning hours and those, like I saw a picture of the team shoveling snow the other day. We did that too, man. And that's what made me the man that I am today. That's what made me the father that I am today, the coach that I am today. And without those experiences, I don't know what I'd be doing, who I would be. So no, those yeah, they were difficult, but they definitely shaped me and helped mold me into become I think a pretty good father and a good coach as well. which is why I think Cliff's having such great success. You look at Cliff and Eric and Bryant and Joe and Clayton. I mean, it's no surprise that there's so many names over the course of Coach LeClair's tenure that have gone on to do great things, because he instilled that in everything that we did. Every time we put those cleats on, every time we put that Pirates uniform on, it was about giving it your all. And whether I'm wearing a Fieldhouse Pirates hoodie now or a East Carolina jersey back in the day, it was about leaving it all on the field.
Yeah, you certainly have guys that were part of that tree from Western Carolina as well. But what you just named off there, with all those guys that are part of that Keith LeClair tree, it's hard to believe that Coach LeClair was just at East Carolina 5 years, because it seems like with all the success that was had and him leaving such a legacy in so many ways, that he was there, well over a decade or more.
Yeah, I mean, he was a great leader. Like at the end of the day, like, was he the best coach that I ever had in terms of skills? No, not necessarily. But I mean, he was able to take a bunch of young teenagers and young men and turn them into men. And I think that showed in the way that we played the game. And the results that we got was all because of how he was able to help us grow and mature and work together. And it was a cohesive unit, man. It was whether it was 1999 or 2001, it always felt the same. It didn't matter who was sitting beside you. And that was all because of his leadership. He was definitely, if not one of the greatest leaders that I've ever been around.
In Coach LeClair's first season, the program had gone 30-29, but you could see those pockets of success and what was building, and then the tremendous class that I referenced with yourself, Tracy, Beck, Schnabel, etc. And so take us through that 99 season. You and Chad had two of the better freshman seasons in East Carolina baseball history, which is saying something. And I think you had right at 70 hits. Going back and looking through the record books, which still ranks fifth for freshmen, and you put up a lot of impressive numbers. What are your memories of that freshman year?
It was the memories were just the building. Like, I remember we knew we were good, and then you start stringing together some wins, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, what we lost? You know what I mean? Like, we didn't lose often, but like, those losses really stung. And I remember, whether we didn't show up mentally, or just baseball, funny things can happen. But I remember those losses really hurt. And then, I remember there was a lot of build and culmination leading into the conference championships. And then obviously we ended up at LSU, which was a great experience for sure. And, I think if we hadn't run into some poor weather and lost a day worth of rain and allowed Ainsworth to come back, we probably would have shocked the world, to be honest with you, because we were firing on all cylinders. But that first year was just, we worked our tail off all off season, and then to finally see the fruits of the labor. And then we just, as with every week, we just grew stronger and stronger as a unit. And I think that helped build towards strong years to follow for sure.
Yeah, describe that experience at LSU, the old Alex box. The new one's tremendous, but there was something different about that old one. Just seeing it in old videos and so forth, and just hearing them from Pirate fans who made that trip down in, I guess, late May of 1999. What a opportunity that was, because LSU they were the team of the 90s in college baseball, multiple national titles, and just and they needed no introduction. But I can imagine, what was going through their mind when they saw, hey, we're playing at Alex Box, we're hosting, but we're the number 2 seed, and then we took care of business that first game in that 1-0 winners bracket game, and like you said, unfortunately unable to close out in that second game, where I believe we had a lead and ended up losing a shootout like 11 or 12-10. But and we also had our aide Travis Thompson, who was unavailable.
Yeah, I mean, well, the first thing that stands out was it was a pretty intimidating environment. From the bus ride in. I'll tell you what. Like, I'm not going to put our fans down because I think East Carolina fans are the best in the country, and we're blessed to have the support that we have. The fans at LSU were ruthless, though. Like, I mean, you had 80-year-old grandmothers flipping you the bird as your bus is driving up, and you get off the bus and there's a tiger, and at that time, their stadium was pretty imposing. I think the stadium that we have now in Greenville is one of the best facilities in the country. We didn't have that back then, and rolling into a packed, I think they had 8,000 people in Alex Box, and they were loud and they're right on top of you. I think that fired us up a little bit too. But we, like you said, we fell a little bit short, and honestly, like there's so much rain at LSU that the championship series, the last game, whatever, we got pushed back a day, and that allowed them to re-up on their pitching, and that, I think that was all the ultimate, like, the difference maker, because our offense was firing. I remember John Williamson hitting a ball over the scoreboard there that I'm pretty sure went into the football stadium. That was the other thing too. Their football stadium was right field, massive football stadium. It was pretty intimidating, but to be able to go down there, and even though we fell short, to know that we could compete with the best programs in the country, I think helped set the standard for the years to come.
Yeah, that's one of the things you always think about with LSU, whether it's the old Alex Box or the new Alex Box, that billboard in right center field with the tiger's eye or tiger's face, and
Yep.
all those national championships listed.
Yep.
So moving into your sophomore year, you had that opportunity to prove that 99 was no fluke, and you guys did that. I think it seems like late season there was maybe a little bit of a lull, which certainly happens in the game of baseball. But you guys got it together going into the tournament, which was at Manio. And what are your memories of that? Because that was a huge deal to win the conference tournament, obviously. But it was like I said, following up that little bit of a late season lull, it solidified a second straight #1 seed for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest difference from year one to year two was obviously expectations. We were expected to produce the way that we produced the year prior, but not only for our fans and our families, but now the opposition kind of knew who we were, right? So I think we got a lot of teams' bests, more than we had in previous years, and going into that lull, I don't remember. I remember going through a little bit of a lull where we might have gone on like a 4 or 5 game skid, and even we started off that tournament, I don't think with a very convincing win, but it was a win that I again, my memory, I can't remember it exactly, but it was a win that it was one of those wins that we just kind of needed to kind of get over the hump, be like, hey, we're back, we got this. And then I just remember kind of going on a roll again, and every time we showed up the field, didn't matter who was on the mound, who was in the lineup, we were going to win. And then like you said, yeah, we secured another #1 seed down against a really good Louisiana squad, a really scrappy yet talented Louisiana squad, and in similar fashion, just fell short. But again, I think another quality season for us for sure.
For Pirate fans, most the ones that follow college baseball closely, even back then, 25 years ago, I know Louisiana, much like East Carolina, Southern Miss, and have some excellent college baseball atmosphere. What was it like back in those days in 2000?
I mean, it was good. I mean, to be honest with you, I think it was a little bit more mild tempered than LSU was, or was playing in front of our fans. I think we ran into a really good team, man. I mean, I know for many years, the committee's kind of not so much had it out for us, but really tested East Carolina baseball. And I think we got put into another bracket where you had some teams that were a lot better than what their rankings showed. And again, whether it was us or them, both deserving to go to the to the super regionals, and they just got the better of us. But in terms of atmosphere, I mean, I'd take our park or LSU's park in terms of intimidation or wow factor over Louisiana back then.
And that Louisiana team in 2000, after winning the regional over the Pirates, went on to a super regional at South Carolina and advanced to Omaha.
Yeah, they had a really good team, man. I remember they
Yeah.
had some really. I mean, I remember they had an incredible pitching depth, and there's a lot of tough outs in that lineup. So I know that they really wore down our pitchers, had extended a lot of at bats, and that was the grind of a series too. I to be honest with you, I mean LSU, they're LSU, but I really felt that we had LSU's number, and just I said some unfortunate circumstances with the weather and not having Travis definitely hurt as well. He was a phenomenal pitcher, but Louisiana, they had a heck of a team, man, that year. I remember that. So hats off to them, and it's unfortunate we couldn't pull through, but we lost. I don't really like losing. I hate losing more than I like winning, but hats off to them. I had a lot of respect for that club and the way they played the game.
Before we dive into that 2001 season, over your first couple years with the Pirates, and like you mentioned, playing very good opponents, be it home or away, you'd had Clemson come to Harrington Field. You'd also played a couple midweek games at Clemson. Of course, those midweek games, home and home with the Wolfpack, the Tar Heels, etc. But are there any games that really stand out from the old jungle there at Harrington Field when it really was the jungle? You had those white pines dripping sap on the fans in left field, and things were governed a lot more loosely than they are today.
Yeah, it's so it's funny. I guess you could put it like when we kind of knew we had made it, so to speak. East Carolina is obviously a big football school, and basketball was pretty highly regarded. And I remember my junior year, all of a sudden, because after having multiple years of success, I think people finally started to realize your diehards are always there, but when you start getting the support of the sororities and the fraternities having socials out in the outfield during batting practice and these big parties going on. And, anytime Carolina came to East Carolina, it was always a blast, man. I mean, I don't even think I went to class those days. It was too exciting. We really, really look forward to those days. Anytime you can, I mean, growing up, to be honest with you, I was a North Carolina basketball fan. So, to be able to play Carolina and beat them on our field, and that was always really, really special. I actually, my first year with the Toronto Blue Jays, my roommate was Terrell Godwin, and Terrell Godwin played for University of North Carolina, and he told me straight up, he's like, man, your place was the toughest place I ever had to play. He was like, those fans knew everything about me. They talked the most crap I've ever heard, and he's like, man, I had people dump beer on me, and I was like, welcome to the jungle.
Hey, and that was right when the internet was really getting cranked up, right? I mean, so
Totally, yeah.
That was very impressive on our fans' part, the way they had a very in-depth bio on all those outfielders.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I tell you what, it makes me proud. It does, like when I hear stuff like that from your opponents, that that our place was that intimidating, because as a hometown player and playing for East Carolina, that you have the support, and you can see it when you're showing up for batting practice. You can feel it in the air. And you can feel the love, you can feel the support, but then to hear the version from the other side is an intimidating factor, the intimidation factor that they have on our opponents. That's fantastic.
So going into that 2001 season, coming off of back-to-back #1 seeds, but having to go on the road, we knew it was going to be our final year in the CAA, and as a result, we weren't going to be allowed to compete in the conference tournament. So obviously, all the more important to have an excellent regular season. And, we went 19-2 in the league and earned another number one seed. Fortunately, we were able to submit a bid, or chose to submit a bid, and we're able to host a regional at Wilson's Fleming Stadium, excuse me. And I'll just recall, that was certainly the most big time college baseball atmosphere I'd ever been in, and just the way things were that weekend at Fleming Stadium when you guys gathered as a team. I guess it was down the right field line before that initial game against UMBC, and came to the dugout. Just I get chills thinking about the roar of the crowd when you guys headed toward the dugout.
That was special, man. I mean, to have to go on the road for the first 2 years and be able to play at home in front of our, wonderful crowd, wonderful fans, and like you said, a fantastic big crowd. It was electric, man. I mean, it, much like I said, when you're getting ready to play, the NC States or Carolinas or Clemson's at home, it didn't matter who we were playing. It had the same feeling, that same vibe. And, I just remember, actually, I remember, because I got hit by a ground ball in like pregame, and I shattered my sinus cavity, and I remember I had to sleep sitting up, and I remember I couldn't sleep very well, and even if I hadn't had a broken nose, I don't think I would have been able to sleep very well, just because of the anticipation and excitement to be able to perform at that level in those type of games in front of arguably a home crowd, even though it wasn't in Greenville, but. I remember those days were really long, because school's out and you've got to, you're going into mid-May and late May. And I remember the time moving really, really slow. The anticipation was like immense. Like I couldn't wait to play in front of our crowd. And I knew that it would be electric because, like I said, the support that the East Carolina Pirates fans have for their baseball, basketball, football, whatever it is, they always come out in full force. And that was a really, really, really special weekend.
How about that winners bracket game against the South Florida Bulls? We had one of the patented rain delays that we so often have when we're hosting a regional. Very much like that one against UNC Wilmington back in 2018. It was at least 3 hours, maybe 5 or 6. And I just remember we were fortunate to be staying with a friend right there in Wilson that was no more than probably 3 or 4 miles from Fleming Stadium. And we were just constantly, making phone calls, and even in that day, you had to drive over there to see what was going on and make the phone calls. You didn't have the luxury of just checking, a hoist the colors or checking Twitter or whatnot. But that game finally, I think, had first pitch about 10 or 10:30, and it was nuts that night. It was a typical, night game atmosphere. And I remember some South Florida fans when they led in the middle innings, running their mouth down the left field line, and then we put together seems like a 5-run inning or something, and really shut them up.
Yeah, that was. I remember we were on the bus for hours. Like it was like just trying to entertain ourselves on the bus, and even though it took a long time, and obviously you can't wait to get out there and play. I remember the atmosphere on that bus being very, very, very loose, which was kind of refreshing when you think about it. But yeah, I remember that game starting late, which is great because it gave our fans an opportunity to maybe have a couple more cold ones and allow our guys to, even though we might not have came out firing in all cylinders, just to stay with us and keep us fired up. And yeah, that was it's, you can never predict rain delay or whatever, but I think if you just kind of go back to the falls where we were crawling under the barbed wire, piggybacking each other up football stadium, shoveling snow, it's those kinds of experiences together, those kinds of grind, that when you're down in the middle of a game against a good opponent, you don't really worry about it, because whether it be to your right or your left, that everyone's pulling on the same rope trying to accomplish the same goal. And we believe in each other and what we're able to do.
Talk about that lineup. it was really a murderer's row. And no, you didn't have anybody that hit 25 or 30 bombs, but I think Cliff led the team with 15, and I don't know the other numbers, but you had Chad, Joseph Hastings that you already mentioned, yourself. So many excellent excellent bats in that lineup.
Yeah, John Williamson as well, and we
Yeah,
had
I mean, how do I leave out that name? Yeah, and John Williamson, B Dub, I think led the team in average, hitting about 370.
Probably, what's crazy is like, dude put up some legit numbers, but he was like very, very, very talented, but like kind of underrated. Like he was the type of dude that like, just maybe it was his demeanor because he always was just kind of calm and playful. But man, that guy could hit. No, I mean it really didn't matter. It was kind of like, if Chad didn't get it done, I'd pick him up, or if I didn't get it done, Joe would pick me up, or Eric, or it didn't matter. John, it didn't, like, it was a different guy on a different day, different night. Like we were very well balanced, man. And I think that was, especially when you're in a pressure cooker situation in a regional or in a tough environment like LSU, like it was always kind of nice to know that there was somebody behind you that was going to be able to get the job done. So yeah, you call it murderer's row. It's funny because we, as players, we didn't think of it that way. Like we just, it's kind of, we all believed in each other and what the next man was able to do. And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. One day it would be Joe Hastings, the next day it would be Backich, or it'd be Bryant Ward, or it'd be Nick Schnabel coming through with a big hit, or just executing something just super special. It was a lot of fun, man. We could win in many different ways, and I think that's what helped us have so much success. We didn't just have to rely on the long ball. Coach LeClair prepared us for every moment, and we did the best of our ability to execute. And unfortunately, we ended up on the right side more often than not.
Yeah, you talk about that ability that Coach LeClair had to lead and galvanize, get everyone pointing in the same direction, and so forth. Is there an occasion or two? Obviously, one of the ones that we often hear about. Obviously, not in good circumstances after you guys lost the second game of that Kinston Super Regional, when he told you in the outfield that if this is the worst thing that happens to you, then you're going to have lived an excellent life. But whether it was maybe even in a moment in the fall or whenever, but a couple moments that you can share about Coach LeClair that maybe Pirate fans have not heard. I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but
you know what? He was as much of a good leader as he was, he did a phenomenal job of letting the team leaders lead the team. We very rarely had any issues within the team or with the coaching staff, because he didn't really micromanage. He kind of just said, "This is what I expect. This is what I need you to do. This is how we're going to do it," and we just we followed his lead. He was kind of like, I had a friend of mine, my best friend growing up. His father was the type of man that was intimidating, but was very kind and gentle. And what I mean by that is, he never yelled. He never, if he said he was unhappy, you just kind of say, okay, he's unhappy. One day he yelled at my best friend and I. And I knew right then, okay, we really pissed him off. And Keith was kind of the same way. He didn't really yell. He didn't really, enforce any uber strict laws or rules or anything like that. But when he was upset, you really felt that you had, and nobody wanted to let Keith down because, you had such respect for him. And I think to me, that's what stands out the most. You don't need to be the most vocal. You don't need to, be all rah rah and yell and get in your face. You can, you can lead by just being a good human and a good man. And that's what Keith was. So like, as much as, it was disappointing to fall short for us and the Pirates fans, it was more disappointing to fall short for him because we knew how much that meant to him. And we all wanted to do it for him. Now that when I coach, I wear number 23, just like all the other fellas, just out of respect for Keith, because he was an incredible man. And yeah, I think that's when I think of Keith, that's definitely what I think about.
One of the stories that we'll always hear with Coach LeClair is how he provided the players with a Pirate Purple Bible, and just the way he, like you mentioned, was just I guess an excellent players coach, and just his style of leadership. Do you remember that, as far as him providing you guys with that Pirate Purple Bibles?
Absolutely. I'll be honest with you. I didn't grow up religious at all. And the first time that I ever said the Lord's Prayer was before a game. So, Coach LeClair taught me a lot about, having faith and Jesus. Yeah, that was the first experience that I had ever had with it. So yeah, I still have my purple Bible, to be honest with you. Which is crazy that I still have my purple Bible. I still have my East Carolina helmet. And yeah, I don't think I'll ever get rid of those two things.
Obviously, one of your teammates for a few seasons there, I guess your entire career, was Cliff Godwin. Coach is in his 11th year, got in the program now, returned in the summer of 2014, has accomplished so many great things, taking the program to 4 super regionals, 3 consecutive super regionals, and 5 consecutive American Athletic Conference regular season titles. Talk about your relationship with him, and that picture there that our viewers see. What that was back, I think, in 2018 or so.
Yeah. I mean, Cliff is the consummate leader. I mean, I think he takes. I couldn't think of anyone else to represent what Keith taught all of us. I think Cliff's doing a phenomenal job of carrying on that legacy with the program right now. I mean, even back when we were all young men, experiencing the college lifestyle, he handled it like a pro. I mean, I think I'm pretty sure he had close to a perfect GPA, and was always on top of his books and never late for any team meetings or team anything. And I couldn't be more proud of Cliff and what he's been able to accomplish there. And I know he's had many opportunities to leave, and I'm extremely proud to know that he's representing Keith's legacy, and is going to continue to do his best to fulfill the dream that we all had, which is to take East Carolina to Omaha.
Yeah, no doubt. You get chills, when you see Coach in an interview, just like Media Day here recently, I guess about a little over a week ago now, when he starts talking about what East Carolina means to him, and he can't help but to get a little emotional.
Absolutely. What's the town that he's from? It's not too far. Winter? No. Small. Remember
He's from Snow Hill, Green County, Green
Snow
Central
Hill.
High School.
Yeah, like that's home, right? Like East Carolina's home for him. And everything that the purple and gold is, and everything that Keith, like I said, Keith stood for, is embodied in him. And like I said, I couldn't think of anyone else who I'm a fan. Like I love and respect Cliff, and I'm proud of everything that he's done. But I couldn't think of a better person to manage that team, and to continue Keith's legacy for sure.
So there, following the 2001 season, you mentioned how you got drafted in the 5th round out of high school, by the Blue Jays, and then you had another opportunity to get drafted, by a team in your home country there, with the Blue Jays, going in the 6th round. So just obviously you'd have been thrilled to get drafted by anyone, but to get drafted once again by Toronto. Describe that experience.
I mean, anytime you get an opportunity to, further yourself in your career, and have an opportunity to play professional sports, especially for me, the love of baseball that I had to play professional baseball is unbelievably, incredibly exciting. But it was also extremely difficult. I mean, I loved every minute and every day at East Carolina, and I loved being a Pirate, and it was really difficult for me. But baseball's a young man's game. Even back then was somewhat of a young man's game, and potentially losing another year to have an opportunity to chase my dream was ultimately the deciding factor. But I remember that being extremely difficult. I forged a lot of unbelievable relationships with a lot of great people, and I know it was tough for me. As exciting as it was definitely tough.
And then, you played 3 years of A ball, is that correct? And then a couple years of unaffiliated, independent professional baseball.
Yeah. No, I had a short stint with the Blue Jays, and then I had an opportunity to go play in Quebec City, play independent ball, which was, to be honest with you, I was torn because I had an opportunity to go play over in Italy. I knew if I'd gone over to Italy, there was very little chance of me maybe getting back into affiliated ball. So I opted to play independent ball in Quebec. And you know what? Those 2 years were actually pretty incredible years. It reminded me a lot. The group there reminded me a lot of the teams at East Carolina. Independent league's somewhat of a revolving door where, a lot of guys come and go, but we had a pretty good tight knit group there, and we didn't have a lot of turnover. So those 2 years were a lot of fun for me, and a good way to kind of end my career there, playing in Quebec for the Capitals.
When you made that decision to hang up the cleats, I mean, tell Pirate fans, over the last couple decades what you've been up to. I know you're doing some coaching. I also know that you've been heavily involved in the promotional items business, which is something I can relate to because my dad has owned his own promotional items business for 30 plus years now.
Yeah, I kind of once I realized that wasn't going to chase my dream any longer, and I kind of didn't want to start my working career or enter the working world at 30, 31 years old. So at 25 years old, I decided that enough was enough. It was time to kind of grow up and start working, for lack of better words. And so I started working for Coca-Cola, and I worked there for a couple of years, and an opportunity came about for me to work for a company that works in the promotional industry. And we worked with some companies like Coors Light and some big cellular companies and whatnot. And so that was an opportunity for me to get into that. And then I kind of branched off and started doing my own thing. I've been doing that this is year 15. So it's an interesting world that I didn't know existed, when I first got into it. But I really enjoy it. I run my own business now. I've got the promo company, and then I also have my own screen printing and embroidery business. So it kind of works. But I'll be honest with you, my favorite thing to do is coach. I had an opportunity 7 years ago to work for a program called the Fieldhouse Pirates, which is, I guess what you guys would call travel ball down there. We train all year long. We've got a state-of-the-art facility. I think it's 44,000 square feet, all high-end weight room and turf. And, to be honest, I think there's a lot of college Division I programs that would be jealous of the facility we have. It's really, 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 really well done. Jimmy Richardson and Bob Hooper do a really good job here. We've had some really talented players come through here. Actually, Coach Bakich and Snobble recruited one of our players who I believe he's a Chicago Cubs number 3 or 4 prospect now, a guy named Owen Casey. And we've been working. We're blessed with we've got a really good group of coaches and kids here. And then I've got 2 young boys, 11 and 8, so I coach them as well. I'll be honest with you, I love coming to work every day and being a coach.
Yeah, I can definitely relate there. My kids are 7th grade and 5th grade, and playing a little bit of everything. My son is wrapping up basketball, and I mentioned to you earlier, we're going to the baseball field after basketball practice to get a little BP and workout in.
I'm jealous. I'm jealous you guys can be outside.
You'd have been really jealous today, Lee. Here on February 4th, here a couple weeks ago, we had temps that I think I told you on Instagram that rivaled the weather that you guys are getting down in the teens and maybe even single digits a time or two. But today it was 75 degrees.
Oh, that's spectacular. I wish we could have some of that. We're actually a couple weeks away. We're sending a lot of our upperclassmen down to Florida to play in an event down there. So like I said, we try to, as much as I love the facility here, we try to get outside as quickly as possible. But yeah, 75 degrees sounds wonderful right now.
Of course, the Pirates will be opening, like I mentioned, against George Mason here in 10 days. And the extended forecast is currently calling for mid to upper 60s. I think there is some rain, though, so we need to get that out of the way. But mid to upper 60s would be amazing.
100%. Yeah. I mean, you know what? I think everyone's just excited for Pirate baseball to be back. So even if there's a couple of flurries in the air, I don't think anyone's going to be upset for game one.
No doubt. That opening day is, there's something about it. You're almost like when you love it the way we do, you're like a little kid on Christmas. There's just something different about that initial game.
Absolutely. And then, you blink your eyes and you're playing in a conference championship. It goes by way too fast, man. It's playing college baseball, especially in the environment that is at East Carolina, is one that I try to tell my kids here how special it is, man. It's I'm excited for this group of young Pirates to hit the field this year, and even from up here, I continue to cheer and support from afar.
Yeah, that's the great thing, with the internet now and the coverage on ESPN Plus. It makes it very easy, whether it's live or archived. You at your leisure, you can go back and watch the game if you can't watch it when it's actually taking place.
Absolutely, yeah. No, it's. I mean, I think my parents wish we had that technology back then, because the only time they got to watch me play was when they came down to either a regional or came down to Greenville itself. But yeah, no, it's really cool to have access to the games, whether it be a radio or like you said on ESPN or on the internet live stream. And the feeds are fantastic. Like it's incredible.
Yeah.
Like even, I remember many times last year, I've got a Blue Jay game on the background and East Carolina game on my phone.
Yeah, our fans are definitely spoiled with our ESPN Plus production, because when we go on the road, even if you have some good camera work, maybe the announcers aren't the best or vice versa, and you have to just, a lot of them don't understand, how we prioritize our baseball program relative to some of the programs in the American, and Cliff Godwin's going to see to it that every aspect of our program is going to be top notch.
As it should be. As it should be. I mean, if
Exactly.
I think we talked about earlier on tonight, 1998, where we ranked 130th, 140th in the country, and now we're perennial top 25. I mean, East Carolina baseball is a powerhouse, and it should be. We've got the best fans in the country. We've got unbelievable facilities, best coaching in the country. I'm proud to tell everyone about my journey, my experience at East Carolina, and even though I'm wearing black and gold right now, I still bleed purple and gold.
And we definitely appreciate the time, Lee. You're very generous to spend nearly an hour with us, and we've enjoyed the conversations. I know Pirate fans have liked hearing about, one of the, really, as successful as any era of East Carolina baseball, 3 consecutive #1 seeds. And when the Pirates would have certainly, had we had the facility or, placed a bid in 99 and 2000, hosted 3 consecutive years. And, finally, a couple years ago, we're able to host that super regional on campus against the Texas Longhorns and came up just shy of Omaha. But it will undoubtedly happen in God's timing, just like Coach Godwin always says. But we look forward to having you back on the show sometime down the road.
My pleasure. It's been a blast. I appreciate you very much, Bubba, and to all these Carolina Pirates fans, thank you so much for an incredible time. I genuinely will never forget those 3 years down there in Greenville. I love it every time I get a chance to go to Greenville. I can't wait to bring my 2 boys down there and show them what real baseball love and support's like.
Yes, sir. Let me know on social media, if you're going to be in town, and look forward to catching up with you sometime at Clark LeClair.
Sounds great. Thanks again, Bubba. You have a great night.
Yes, sir. You too. Pirate Nation, that is former East Carolina shortstop Lee Delfino. We appreciate his time. Here in just over a week, we'll have the debut, the season debut of This Week in Pirate Baseball. We'll take a look back at that initial series with the George Mason Patriots out of the Atlantic 10. And then we'll have multiple episodes of On Deck, which is our weekly preview show. We may have multiple episodes in a given week, just depending on when those are recorded. We'll catch up with the head coach of George Mason, and if we can't catch up with the head coach, we'll catch up with the play-by-play voice or beat writer to get you a look at the upcoming Pirate opponents. And on our weekly show, our weekly recap, that is this week in Pirate baseball. We'll be joined by a variety of guests, ESPN play-by-play analysts who may be even doing some I say play-by-play color analysts who may be doing some play-by-play. Mike Mullis, Mully will join us. Others will join us as we take a look back on the week that was for East Carolina baseball. Be sure to donate to the 23 Club if East Carolina baseball is something that you're passionate about. It's very important for you to donate to the 23 Club. Go to 23club.org. Mike Harrington and some former Pirate players doing an excellent job running that segment of Team Boneyard. It is through Team Boneyard, but anything that you give to the 23 Club will go directly to supporting East Carolina baseball players as we make up that difference. Of course, it's still 11.7 scholarships, but we'll be becoming probably at least the limit will be 34. We'll see how many the Pirates are able to offer and fund, but definitely give to the 23 Club, and we can help supplement that difference between whatever the scholarship that the player is receiving and the full cost of attendance. And then definitely, stay tuned for content here in the next coming days. We'll be catching up with Mully as we take an in-depth look at the Pirates here in the last week and a half. And then we caught up with Trent Britt. That was a couple episodes ago. Trent and I took an in-depth look at the Pirate roster. Trent, of course, right there in Greenville, running Next Level Training Center, has the opportunity to get out there some to the intra squads. Also, just talking to folks and interacting with players. During the off season, as they may come into Next Level Training Center to get some work in on their own. But definitely go back and check out that conversation with Trent. And most recently, prior to tonight's episode, we caught up with Mike Rooney of D1 Baseball. Also, back in late December, had on Aaron Fitt of D1 Baseball. I encourage you to go back and listen to those podcasts. Not only some good information about the Pirates, but also the American Athletic Conference, other regional opponents, and the national landscape. We've caught up with former players like Scott Andrews of the 2004 Super Regional team, Chandler Jenkins, Earl Boykin, a conversation that I had recorded back in January of 2021. We replayed that back last summer. Earl, for those who aren't familiar, was a member of that 1961 NAIA National Championship team and ran a sporting good business for years in Wilson, North Carolina. So Earl was very generous to the East Carolina program, and a very high level donor for years for ECU baseball and the Pirate Club and ECU athletics in general. So if you have not heard that conversation, go back and check it out. We've also caught up with former Pirate pitcher Chris Holba, Carter Cunningham, the 2024 AAC Player of the Year. Benny T, Ben Terwilliger, who had that very solid 1 year with the Pirates in 2022, and also Trey Daly of the Dirtbags organization, who provided a lot of excellent information on many of the Pirates that you'll be seeing for the first time in 2025. And if you don't own the book, Never Take This for Granted by Bethany Bratcher, you need to ask yourself why and buy that book. It's excellent. Got my copy when it came out last spring. Bethany is an excellent writer. Had, of course, already penned Coaching Third, the Keith LeClair story. And she did an excellent job as well with Never Take This for Granted, catching up with a variety of people close to East Carolina baseball, players, fans, both young and old, and then also former players, etc. Really outlining why Pirate Nation is so supportive of, and just that relationship, which is very unique with the program. But that will do it for this edition of the show. We appreciate everyone tuning in. Be sure to follow us on social media. You can find us on X as well as Instagram at Jungle Tales Pod. If you're searching for us on YouTube, Facebook, or Spotify, simply search Jungle Tales, a Pirate Baseball podcast, and you should be able to find us. But we'll talk to you soon here on Jungle Tales. We appreciate your support. And as always, go Pirates.